must have been meant for me, Dan.
I was just telling the senator that as a farm kid from Southern Illinois, but who got involved in no labels because of my commitment to nonpartisan governance, she's my role model and hero. Can we have an applause for her being and get started here? What this senator has done over the last 22 years, as far as her commitment to integrity, leadership, nonpartisan governance, bringing people together, finding solutions, and working so hard to get results, she is someone that is so aligned, at least in my judgment, with no labels. Thank you so much for everything you've done, and we want to give you a chance to talk here a bit today. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm not here to cross-examine you. They tell me I'm a moderator, okay? So let me start with this. Let's just talk about, as far as the commitment to nonpartisan governance and what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years, how do you see things? Talk to our audience here.
Well, first of all, Dan, thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you and to our friends at No Labels. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for a commitment to being open-minded about how we tackle the real challenging issues across our country in a way that is good for all. Not a way that is good for the Republicans on Tuesday and good for the Democrats on Friday, but a way that is good for our country as a whole. And I think that's what most people out there in America really want. And you heard the panel before me talking about, let's just get some stuff done. So what does the next 4 years look like? Well, we actually have a little bit of a template because we're now on Trump 2. So we have a little bit of a preview of what we might anticipate going forward. What that means for the parties, what that means for those who dare to stand in the middle, what that means for those who really don't feel that they got a political home sometime. I don't think I've made any secret of the fact that I'm more of a Ronald Reagan Republican than I am a Trump Republican. And some would say, well, you're not really a Republican at all. And I said, you can call me whatever you want to call me. I'm not attached to a label. I'd rather be that no label. I'd rather be that person that is just known for trying to do right by the state and the people that I serve, regardless of party. And I'm totally good and comfortable with that. In fact, I think I am more comfortable with that identity than an identity as a Republican, as a party person. But I think it's going to be hard, quite honestly. I think it's going to be hard in these next 4 years because you have an administration coming in that has had an opportunity to kind of see how things work, what didn't work, and now we've had 4 years to think about it, and the approach is going to be everybody toe the line. Everybody line up. We got you here, and if you want to survive, you better be good. Don't get on Santa's naughty list here because we will primary you. I mean, we are seeing that play out in real time right now with the nominees who have just been named. There's been no committee process on any of them. They're just kind of doing their courtesy calls right now. And my friend Joni Ernst, who is probably one of the more conservative, principled Republican leaders in the Senate right now, is being hung out to dry for not being good enough. And you're going to get primaried. Well, you know, what's this all about? Why are we doing this to ourselves? So I think we're getting a little bit of a preview now of what it's going to mean to be allegiant to party. And I don't think that that's going to help us as a Republican Party, believe it or not. And I think it's going to energize and charge up the Democrats to say, all right, the Republicans are going to overreach, they're going to overreact, and so we're going to have an opportunity. I so wish, and You gave me leash here, Dan. You let me
Did-
talk.
you-
I refrained from that second cup of coffee coming in because I knew I was going to get excited this morning. But we had an opportunity, I think, to give people in this country an alternative in the last go-round, and we didn't feel like we were ready for it. I think people in this country are ready for something other than the red or the blue, that there is a path for those in the middle.
Although, let me ask you about that. That is what led me to No Labels, okay? I was convinced that No Labels' commitment to nonpartisan governance meant things, but I wasn't quite sure what it really would come down to in hardcore results. And then I got involved in the ballot access project of No Labels and putting together a true unity ticket. Mm-hmm. And I would talk to folks across the country, and I think the number was 65 to 70% of the American public wanted to see a different choice. They just wanted to see somebody else that could be put into the mix. And it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, we spent an enormous amount of time trying to make that happen, trying to convince respected people to consider leaving their party and running on a unity ticket was challenging. And then we found out recently through discovering a lawsuit that there were groups of people out there that literally had made up their mind to burn us down to the ground. They did that. And so the idea that I'm curious, what impact do you think it could possibly have had? Speculate with me. What impact could it have had if we actually did get a strong unity ticket, and what impact would it have had on what has been one of the most extraordinary presidential elections in American history?
If we had been able to do it, I think it would have allowed the American electorate to finally think about the possibilities outside of the box. I think it would have empowered individuals rather than parties, and that's exactly why both sides are afraid of no labels. That's exactly why in a state like Alaska, where we have instituted ranked choice voting, but through that process, through that electoral reform process, we got rid of closed primaries. The biggest opponents that we had to that initiative were the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, because as soon as you do that, they lose power. They lose power. And that's not what they want. But the Alaskans said, well, wait a minute, I actually like the fact that I might be able to identify who the best candidate is to serve me, whether it's in the Senate or as governor. I like the strength of my vote. And I think if we had been able to demonstrate that through a unity ticket, even if they were not to have prevailed, but if you could have had them out there so that people could have seen the possibility and be free to vote for that, and to demonstrate the strength of that, maybe, just maybe, even if they might not have prevailed, it would have set the table for the next election where you may be able to gain more support. This is hard, but if somebody doesn't start it, it's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I have a great relationship with Joe Manchin. And when Joe decided that there was just no way that he could do this, I was incessant. I think he started to avoid me because every time I saw him, I'm like, Joe, you could have fixed this. And, it's water under the bridge, but it's not. It's not, because if we view that, all right, 2024 happened, we missed the shot, and there's never going to be a better time, it's just too late. Well, we will always then be a country where it is a red choice or a blue choice, and there is nothing There is nothing else. You said something just a minute ago. You said people would have to leave their party. Crazy, crazy idea. Crazy idea that you don't have to leave your party and still be free to express views that are outside of your party lines, right? I'm still a Republican. I was returned to the United States Senate not as a Republican. I had to run as a write-in. So some people probably did put Lisa Murkowski, paren R, close paren, but I think that there were very, very, very few people. I was just Lisa Murkowski. I am still a Republican. Some people think I'm an independent, but I've never shed my party label. But many people say, well, not really a Republican. Do we have to leave our party? You've got a system in the Senate where there's two sides of the aisle. And I have to sit on one side or I have to sit on the other. And you caucus with one or you caucus with the other, and that determines where your committees are. So our structure isn't really set up well for independents. Ask Bernie or Angus or even Kirsten or Joe, because they still sat in the same place, still voted for their majority leader. So we got a weird system, and so I think this is part of our challenge here.
Well, as far as the challenge...
You're letting me ramble way too much. Rein me in.
I'm actually not letting you ramble. You got an audience out here that is very interested in the future. Here's what we hear sometimes. For the next 4 years, the resistance on the Democratic Party to do nothing to help Trump. Nothing whatsoever. I mean nothing. On the other side, you have the Republicans that the slightest step to disagree with Donald Trump is a primary and destruction. And so then people get cynical and say, then are we going into 4 years of nothing? In other words, our commitment to nonpartisan, well, let me just ask this question. The infrastructure bill. Can there be another infrastructure bill in the next 4 years because of what I just said? Or is that going to interfere with it? I mean, I want to hear optimism or candor, because I don't know the answer to that.
I believe that good things can happen in a bipartisan way in the next 4 years. And I believe that strongly because of what we have been able to prove out over the years with good faith efforts and good people who want to do good things and who are not willing to wait for 4 years until we see who we're working with next. We don't have the time, we don't have the luxury to do that. There are too many people in this country who need government to work and to work for them. And so how we're able to do that depends on our will and our commitment. When we let out on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we weren't asked to go do that. We found that. We determined amongst a small group of 10 members, where can we find common ground? Because if we can find common ground here, maybe we can develop something that we can provide to leadership. We did that after we had put together a second COVID relief package. That after the election, the leadership in both houses and in both parties had said, we're going to take a pass on doing anything until the new teams get sworn in January. This was November. This was before Thanksgiving. And we said, this small group of us met at my house for dinner and sat in a room with all the windows open because it was COVID, and Chuck Grassley had just tested positive and everything was a mess. And we said, we got to do something. We can't wait until January to start crafting something. And so what we came together with was something that 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats could agree with. And we went to our leadership and we said, we don't need to own this, but the country needs this. And we gave them a template, and from that template, we got results. We took that model, and we did the same then with the bipartisan infrastructure bill later on. We've demonstrated that, and we did it at a time where the Republicans were bound and determined. We're going to push back on everything that comes out of the Biden administration, right? And so we're kind of setting ourselves up into this same scenario. The Dems are going to oppose everything that we want to do, and there's going to be a requirement for a certain amount of allegiance on the Republican side. But I believe that there are too many good people with good intentions who realize we need to act. The country needs us, and so kind of the politics be damned.
I actually find that very, very encouraging. I'm telling you, I wasn't sure. That answer, with that, good people are still there, and the formula that lessons learned from the infrastructure bill and others could be repeated somewhere in the next 4 years, and so.
I don't know what the issue may be.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what issues might be out there that, as a leader and someone who's been an independent, committed to nonpartisan governance, talk to us a little bit about what, and you can speculate, okay, but what do you see out there that maybe would be in areas that could happen in?
Well, so we know that the Trump administration coming in is going to be very keenly focused initially on the border. That was, that was the campaign, and I think you're going to see that very early on. It's going to be very partisan, because we're going to be moving forward with reconciliation early, whether it is reconciliation that involves border and security, taxes, but we get beyond reconciliation. And again, this is where I think we will have this avenue to be focused on what needs to be resolved on a bipartisan basis, not just because it's good, but when it is bipartisan, it's going to be enduring. When we move things through reconciliation, where it's strict party line, what happens? Look at the ACA, move by reconciliation, Republicans get in, we need to overhaul it. Democrats pass IRA by reconciliation, Republicans are like, we got to overhaul it. It is when you have bipartisan legislation, where you've got buy-in from both sides, that it sticks around. And that stick-around policy gives those who are looking to put some capital somewhere a little bit of certainty that it's going to stay in place, and you're not going to have this whipsaw from one administration to another. I think one of the areas where we may have some opportunity to build out some good things is in, we talked about infrastructure in the last administration. But think about what's happening in the country right now when it comes to demand for energy. And people are going to say, oh, gosh, you can't go into energy. That equates to climate on the Dem side. And the Republicans are like, no, 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 drill, drill, drill. There's space in the middle. Let me tell you, there is space in the middle, because the things that people want in this country right now are going to depend so much on our ability to meet our ever-increasing energy demands. Look at what is happening with servers, data servers being built up across the country, the jobs that are being created through chips and manufacturing and all the like. So we're going to have to come to some kind of terms on what is it that is going to allow us to move forward in ways that do not do damage or harm from an environmental perspective, but allow for the opportunities that we're all seeking. So I think there's some room there. I think that there's going to be some room when we think about matters related to, say, family leave.
Okay.
So there There are opportunities for us. I'd like to say legal immigration is an area where we're going to have that good bipartisan support. My jury's still going to be out on that one until we get through some of the initial moves that we will see from President-elect Trump early on as it relates to the border. It may be that things then become so politically overcharged in that space we can't deal with that, but we must. We have a workforce shortage, certainly in my state. We have workforce issues that we're going to have to deal with, and our legal immigration system is severely dysfunctional right now.
And I noticed in some public statements you've made that you basically have said there will be areas that you will agree with Donald Trump on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you've been a leader in the past. You have been, and that's why these people out here, all of us, support you. So in the area of the potential for some type of bipartisan legislation on legal immigration, it's a huge issue. But then what I hear you saying, well, we're going to have to read the early signs from the Trump administration to see if there's an opportunity. Is that, in other words, someone like yourself that's committed to nonpartisan governance, you have to, I assume, find the right opportunity where there's a chance to make it work, because failure doesn't accomplish much for anything. Is that fair?
It is a fair summation. You've got to look for the windows of opportunities. Timing's important. And again, the issues themselves, when we decided as a group that we could focus on infrastructure, we had to agree amongst ourselves. How do we define infrastructure? What are we going to narrow it to? Because there were some in the group that said, well, infrastructure will also bring in, the workforce and childcare and many of the softer side that are still an important part of how you build out infrastructure. But we said, no, that's bigger than we can agree to. So it's not something that Lisa Murkowski comes out and says, this is the idea. Do I have anybody who wants to be with me? I don't operate that way. One of the things that I learned a long time ago is I work really hard and I do my homework, but I can't do it alone. I need the good ideas from everybody else. And quite honestly, I don't care if you're a Democrat, if you're a member of the Green Party, I don't care. If you've got a good idea, let's sit down, let's see what we can incorporate, and I can help be one of those that brings the people to the table to talk in a way that hopefully we can achieve some level of consensus. But I think sometimes, we're looking for the perfect. We're looking for just the right Goldilocks chair. And sometimes the chairs don't fit just right. And so maybe we're trying too hard to squeeze something in that doesn't work. But let's figure out the timing. Let's figure out the people. The people.
That matters a lot.
People matter a lot. You have to have those who are willing, who are okay kind of standing out there in the middle, who are okay taking a little bit of criticism, who are okay not getting permission from your leadership to go and sit down and have a meeting and talk about some alternatives.
Let's talk about people. Joe Manchin. You mentioned Manchin. I became friends with him over time and admire him greatly. I saw an op-ed piece that you and he wrote together several years ago on I think it was on energy and climate issues. You're going to have to fill that void, aren't you? I mean, he's gone. Well,
he's gone. I'm never going to suggest that I'm filling Joe Manchin's shoes. He's a character on his own. But you're right. Joe is leaving. Kirsten Sinema played a huge role with our bipartisan infrastructure bill, as did Rob Portman. Rob is gone. Mitt Romney, of course, was right there with us, hugely instrumental. And so we're losing some of those individuals, those voices who were good and were strong and were willing to willing to kind of push things a little bit in order to get us to the right place. And so how we identify those to bring a broader group together is going to be important. And I think it's important to recognize that depending on the issue, you're going to have different people come in. Remember the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
Yes.
John Cornyn was involved with that and took a very, from his state, a very risky position because people were saying, well, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that you've got gun control provisions in this? And John, who is rock solid with the NRA, said, no, this is the right thing to be doing. And so there was a core group that worked with him on that. He hasn't been part of the other ones, but I throw that out there just as an example that depending on the issue, we may have different participants. James Lankford, again, an excellent example of one who has not been part of the gang, of the bipartisan infrastructure gang, but certainly led the immigration effort. That was a very, it was a bipartisan effort until the end there. And so identifying people along with the issues is something that just doesn't happen by accident. It's not just, I'm going to take my best friend list and we're going to come together and see if we can solve some problems.
I'm impressed by your optimism, and let me ask, they got us on a timer here, okay?
Okay.
Here, I want to talk about one issue. I want to give you...
You want to give me 12 seconds?
No, I'm going to give you all the time you want. Talk to us a little bit, the importance of us providing support in primary challenges. Focusing our money on where it needs to be is an issue that we hear, okay? And from your standpoint, and folks like you who are truly dedicated to nonpartisan independent governance, and yet the challenges you all face and could face, and our need to do the right thing with financial support in primaries. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
It is important, and I hope that you and everyone in this room recognize the value of what you bring to the table, whether it is through your financial support or just words of encouragement, because it is not easy. It is not easy when it is viewed that you're bucking the party, when you're trying to move forward, you're challenging a party incumbent. You have kind of dared to be more in the middle. It's a very lonely place to be, and our architecture, our campaign architecture, is not set up to support that. Our parties support the, if you're going to be one that is going to be true blue to your party label, you're going to get that support from the party, and it means everything from financing to talent, to volunteers, to lists, and you're there. It's no wonder that the party nominees do more favorably. And so you really do feel like you are very much on your own when you are not the party favorite, when you are willing to say, I don't fit well. I don't have that label. I hate the labels that we assign to people. Well, I don't hate it. I really don't like them. I think that it's very problematic, and it puts us in buckets, and then you have to conform to that bucket. What you do and how you do it is important. It needs to continue, but it needs to be broadened. It needs to be deeper, and it needs to be viewed as truly more viable. And so I'm going to encourage no labels. I'm going to encourage the activities in the House and the Senate. because I think people in this country are hungry for an alternative to the status quo that has delivered us to the place that we are, the election that we just saw, and we need no labels, and we need your support.
Well, thank you very much. You said that.
I know.
Anyway, let me, just as thank you very much for spending the time. You look out in this audience right now, I'm telling you, you have enormous support, but you've earned it. There's 22 years of your efforts. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dan.